Hey guys, it's Tisha from Tisha Talks, and today we are talking about self improvement. This is just one of the videos that we are going to be featuring this month as we are focusing on self care. We call this time period, we call this season Developing Her. Right? And so before we jump into the topic of self improvement, right, let's talk a little bit about what developing her means, at least what it means to us, right? It means to being committed to sowing into ourselves and doing the necessary self care that we need to do so that we are able to evolve into the women that we have been called and created to be, right? There should be a continuous growth happening. We should be continuously blooming and evolving in every area of our lives. And a lot of times we tend to take care of everybody else and everyone else except for ourselves. And so this is a time that we are dedicating to providing care for ourselves, to making sure that we're pouring into ourselves and we're doing the things that we need to do so that we can thrive and so that we can evolve and become the women that we have been destined to be. All right, so today we are talking about self improvement. When I think about self improvement, I am reminded of the responsibility that we all have to grow, right? When you look at anything living, it is continuously growing. It is in a cycle of growth. It doesn't stay the same. And I think a lot of the times I use the analogy of when, I was a child and maybe I had this favorite dress that I love to wear, right? It was a pretty pink dress and I loved to wear it. And as I got older, I still was trying to fit into this pretty pink dress because I loved it. But my body outgrew that dress. And sometimes in life, we're still 15 years old. We're 15 years old, still trying to fit into that 3-year old dress, and it's not working. And we're trying to figure out, like, why is this so tight? And why is this uncomfortable? Or why am I always going backwards and not progressing forward? And sometimes we have to grow. We have to put that dress aside and see what is the next piece of item that we should be wearing at 15 years old, right? And so, we all have a responsibility to grow, and we all have an individual responsibility to better ourselves. It is something that we can only take on for ourselves. We can't look to someone else to do it for us. It's very much something that we have to prioritize. And I know as women, a lot of times we are willing to put ourselves on the back burner and not prioritize our own self improvement. And so, not no more. We're not doing it, at least not today. We're not doing it today. So, one of the things in that is recognizing that we are not perfect, that there are flaws that we're going to have, but even in our imperfection, we want to show up as the best version of ourselves. So how do we do that? How do we show up as the best version of ourselves? We place ourselves in positions where we can continue to thrive and grow. And so in order to thrive and grow, we have to be challenging ourselves in different areas of our lives. And so it doesn't mean that we're going to get everything right, right? It doesn't mean that our goal is to be perfect. It doesn't mean that there's going to be perfection. There's never going to be perfection because we're continuously growing. Our goal is to make sure that we're showing up as the best absolute version of ourselves, right? And that means different things for different people. So let's say for me to self improve, I'll use a personal example. I need to improve my eating habits. I do, especially in this quarantine. I have just been buying stuff and not necessarily eating the most healthy. And I know that this is going to have or has had an adverse effect on different health issues that I have, right? And so I have to continue to grow in that area. It is a challenge for me. It's a challenge for me to put down a french fry and to make the smoothie. It is a challenge for me because it requires preparation. It requires a little more thought. It requires a little more intentionality. It requires a little more discipline. And so it challenges me in areas that I'm already comfortable in. Right? I'm comfortable with just going to the store, getting my fries, going, and having somebody put some leftovers in a microwave and not necessarily preparing or prepping or doing the things that needs to be done so that I can have that particular shape. And so that is just an example of self-improvement in terms of health. But now, what if you're looking, you have a goal and you have something that you want to achieve, but you know that maybe you're lacking in the area of knowledge or the area of understanding. And so you're looking to improve yourself in the particular skill. And so then it requires, maybe taking an online course. Maybe that's what you're doing in order to develop yourself and grow yourself in that particular area so that you can reach and obtain that goal that you have. But I think that what we do need to remember out of all this, whatever area it may be, maybe it's education, maybe it's our career, maybe it's parenthood, maybe it's us being a parent, maybe it's us learning self discipline and self control, or maybe it's our anger. Maybe we are working on controlling our temper, right? And we need to improve because we want to be able to have healthy relationships. We want to be able to have healthy conversation. We want to be able to argue in a healthy way, have conflict in a healthy way. And we know that this is an area that continues to come up, right? It's like being in that dress and can't get your arm in because you just you get stuck in the same spot. And when you find yourself stuck, that's an indicator of something that needs to change, something that needs to grow or develop, right? Developing her, something that needs to develop, something that needs to mature, something that needs to grow. And so one of the things that I would, have you to remember is that if it doesn't challenge you, it won't change you, right? Change and growth are synonymous. They're the same thing, right? Change, if something is changing, it's growing, it's becoming different, right? It could be growing in an opposite way, or it could be evolving and growing in a more productive way. But change, to really have change, and when you're thinking about improvement, improvement is really a change. It is a shift. It is a growth of something, right? And so if it doesn't challenge you, more than likely it's not going to change you. So every time we position ourselves to go into self-improvement mode, we know that we're about to encounter something that's going to challenge us. Every challenge doesn't have to be like extremely hard, right? I don't want you to think, oh my gosh, I don't want a really hard challenge. Some of us need to be challenged in areas that are uncomfortable for us. And it may be a hard challenge, a hard shift that we need to make. But then there are some things where we just need a little more discipline, like my shape. I just need a little more discipline. It's not really a hard, cold change or shift, but it's something that is uncomfortable and is challenging me to not only look at it differently, but to manage my time differently, to manage my money and the products that I buy and the things that I uh, I bring home so that I'm able to actually make those shakes. It challenges me to do more than I've currently been doing, right? And it requires me to exercise that muscle of discipline that I previously didn't have to exercise, right? So maybe you're trying to figure out, okay, what area should I improve in? I'm not really sure um, what area I want to focus on. I mean, can't focus on everything all of the time, but you should pick something that you want to focus on, especially during this season and this time when we are making a decision to be intentional about our own self-care, right? So how do you go about deciding what it is that you want to improve on? Some of us know right off the bat. Some of us been dealing with the same stuff that we know we need to change, we need to work on. And so for you it might be quite simple, but for someone else who's, it may not be as simple. They may not be sure or even aware of an area where they could use improvement in. Well, what I would suggest is that you take time to inquire of God for Him to reveal the areas in your life that need to grow, right? The places in your life where growth needs to take place. I think one of the things that I absolutely love to do, I love to journal. I talk about it all the time. I journal, and I write, and I assess. and I look back on my week, I look back on my day, and I see like, ooh, this made me feel some kind of way, or this didn't necessarily go the way that I had planned for it to go, or I didn't necessarily respond the way that I wanted to respond. Could this be something that I need to work on, right? And not everything is something that you need to work on, right? Sometimes some other people need to work on some of their own stuff, right? But that's when you take time to really self-assess, and I think when the thought process is and when the feeling is I really truly want to show up as my best version, right? I want to be my best self. So, health wise, I want to be my best self. I want to be able to have the stamina and have the energy and have the agility, to do the things that I've been called to do or that I desire to do, right? And so, in order for me to be that best version, in order for me to show up that way, show me, Lord, what I need to work on. What do I need to do? And I think opening ourselves up to being available to the areas that need improvement. And I think a lot of times when people think about self improvement, they think about like, oh, someone's going to tell me this is wrong, or they negative. Sometimes they think negative because it's going to challenge you. But challenge isn't necessarily a bad thing. Growth is never a bad thing. It may not always feel comfortable, but it is a necessary thing in order for you to fully show up and be the best version of you that you can be brings you so much more fulfillment, right? You're so much more able to really glow and to really walk in those spaces that you've been called to walk in because you're now in your spot. You're now things are aligning, right? And so, as you continue to improve, as you continue to grow, it opens up new doors of opportunities for you. It allows you to be in places where you may not have been before. So, quick story, I used to be very black and white, right? Like, this is right, this is wrong. And I really had to work on a self improvement space. I really had to work on being able to navigate through the gray or being able to see the gray, right? Because a lot of people live in the gray. There and not even live in the gray. There are a lot of gray areas where it isn't something that's necessarily right or isn't something that's necessarily wrong. It's really the choice of how you choose to show up or how you choose to handle it, right? And I had to begin to navigate in that gray space because being black all the time or having that position of right or wrong all of the time didn't translate well to those people I was trying to um, connect with or grow with, right? And so I had to challenge myself in that area. And so I began to take courses on effective communication. I began to take courses on or take time to listen, understanding more about what listening is about, to gain a new perspective. And I begin to my mindset and my perspective to how there could possibly be another option. There really could possibly be another space, and to allow that space to be okay. And it took me a lot of work, it took me a lot of trial and error to actually step in to someone's viewpoint or position in that gray space. But I'll tell you what it has done for me. It has allowed me now to navigate a little, not a little more, but a lot more freely amongst a more diverse group of people, right? Because if I'm just staying here, if it's either this or that, then all these people in between, I'm not connecting with, I'm not relating to, I'm either going to be moving in this space or I'm going to be moving in that space, right? And so that's not productive, at least not for what I want to do and I've been called to do. And so I had to learn to grow and evolve. And a lot of that, it was mindsets that I had to then turn away from, right? And I had to take a less of a judgmental stance and more of a understanding position, right? In order for me to be in the gray. Because again, the gray is not right, the gray is not wrong, the gray is kind of in between. And so, but the benefits from that have been amazing. I do not believe that I would be able to be on the platform that I am today if I wasn't able to have a shifted perspective. And so that was an area that I had to improve upon. I had to grow in, and it wasn't comfortable. It wasn't comfortable. And at one point, I didn't think it was necessary. But as I began to do those self assessments, as I began to reflect and look back and ask God to show me, and the same things would be coming up, then I began to recognize, hey, this might be an area I need to work on so I can be a better me. Right. And it began to change the dynamic. It began to change the dynamic of the relationships I was in, the situations I would find myself in, the environment I would find myself in, and just allow me to be a better individual and to be better for other people. Right? Because remember, when I started this, I said that sometimes we're so busy doing for other people that we don't pour into ourselves. We really should be giving and doing to other people out of our overflow. Right? And so if I'm going to be giving to you, if I'm going to be pouring to you, if I'm going to be helping you and pouring into your life, I need to make sure that my life is full and I have the things that I need so that I'm not burnt out doing those things for you, right? So guys, let me give you some, I guess, practical tools or practical resources that you can use to improve in many different areas of your life. There's books. Your girl reads books all the time, and if I was a little bit more prepared, I would have some books for you. But there are some books that you can read on whatever that topic is. So if you're dealing with anger, right? Go to Barnes and Noble, do an Amazon search. How to deal with anger. Why am I angry? Just put in the word anger. So many books will come up. There are audibles. If you're not a reader, you can listen to these things. You can listen to these conversations. You can listen to the reader explain those things to you, and it will help you get a better footing on maybe some action that you might need to take in order for you to move in that direction. There are classes. Like I said, I took some classes on communication. I knew that I needed to be able to be more diverse and to be more inclusive of other people's opinions and other people's other people's opinions so that I could be able to navigate and operate in different spaces, right? So I took some classes. So that's also an option. Podcasts. Oh my goodness. You can pretty much find a podcast for anything. And these podcasts are really, really good. Um, my top podcast I'll give you is Therapy for Black Girls. I like that. Let me see if I can pull it up real quick. My different podcasts that I listen to that have really been good. Like if you just want to just grow and you want to begin to even maybe identify some things that maybe you didn't necessarily think was something that you struggled with, but as you're hearing it, like, yeah, I'd like to be better at this or be moving in this space. And so, a person I love to listen to is Redefining Wealth by Patrice Washington. She has tons of books. If you wanted to improve in the area of your finances, I definitely recommend her, but even in the area of the mindset of your finances, how you think about money. If you want to improve in actually budgeting and doing the proper things and knowing how to allocate them, I would recommend the Budgetista. Her podcast is called Brown Ambition. Um, if you are looking to uh, just be a better individual, deal with some of maybe your mental space and your mental thinking, or deal healing different wounds and things that you're dealing with. Therapy for Black Girls is a podcast that I also listen to. There is another really good podcast that I just started listening to that works in that space as well, and I'm trying to see if I can bring the name of it up. I don't see it on here. Um, oh, I think it's Black Girls Heal. Black Girls Heal. Um, Another really good podcast is Myleik Till's podcast. She is the founder of Curlbox, right? And so she has some really good information. Okay, so she talks a lot about professional development as in the space of entrepreneurship, but she does do a lot of personal self-help personal development, and she shares a lot of her journey and her story and how a lot of her mindset had to shift and her attitude and things like that. So she's really, really transparent, and she walks you through some of the things that she had to do for particular things, particular issues. And then of course there's my podcast, Tisha Talks Topics, where I try to talk about the different topics that women may encounter, but I also like to highlight women who are um, walking in their passion and they're really doing some things, and to go through that journey with them as to what had to shift for them, not just the practical shifts that they maybe had to take as in starting a business or registering for the LLC, but what were the mindset shifts, what were the things about themselves that they had to overcome and move forward in. And so those are ways to improve upon yourself. um, and so I just want to encourage you this week to spend some time thinking about ways in which you can improve, because we are called to grow, right? We are called to grow. We are called to continue to evolve. And we want to make sure that we are showing up as the best versions of ourselves that we can be in the season that we are in, because we want to make the most of it. I don't want to have left anything on the table because I wasn't fully my best in this space, right? And so, um, and it's also super important that as you are going on your journey for self improvement, that you're doing the improvement that God has told you to do, right? Because sometimes we may start doing stuff that others have said, oh, you need to work on that, you need to work on that, and that's fine. And taking opinions and advice from other people can be beneficial, but this is really a self journey, right? This is really something that you have to do for yourself. And if you are not open and committed to the challenge that is going to come with it, if you have not opened yourself up to the idea that there's an adjustment or a shift that has to happen, you're just going to go through the motions. You're just going to go through the motions and you're not going to see a real change happen. And that's not our goal here. Our goal is to truly be our best selves and to be able to walk in everything that we've been called to walk in. And so, ladies, it is our time. This is the time that we are going to be working on developing ourselves and improving, looking for areas that we can improve upon, assessing maybe the past month, assessing maybe the quarter, assessing, relationships, assessing those things to see where could I grow, where could I have done better, and what specifically is it that I need to work on, and then get a game plan as to what that's going to look like. Is it going to be me getting a trainer? Is it going to be me reading a book? Is it going to be me listening to a podcast? Is it going to be me committing 15 minutes a day to doing that exercise? What is it going to be? But it's going to be for me, right? It's going to be for you. It's going to be for you. So, guys, I'm excited. This week, we're focusing on self improvement. Next, in the upcoming weeks, we're going to be focusing on self love. And then we're going to be focusing on self care. And then we're going to be focusing on self worth. And all these things are really important as we are making it an intention of ours to put ourselves first. All right, y'all. So I'm excited to hear the stories and the testimonies of ways that you've been able to evolve and grow and things that you've been able to discover about yourself. Until next time, stay good, stay healthy, stay well, and continue developing her.